Hi, welcome to another training movie of Canto Roboflow. This is part 3, so to understand this part you should first have a look at part 1 and part 2 of the test suite for Cumulus 9. These are 6 workflows demonstrating all the basic functionalities of Roboflow, and we already discussed in the previous movies the ability to have a hot folder that cleans up folders, copies files. In the second workflow we cataloged some files, so we had them in a catalog. And the third workflow we discussed was was the task force actions catalog workflow that processes demands from a Cumulus client environment that are stored in an action table. It reads those selections and performs the requested action in Roboflow, having that way a client-server relationship between your client Roboflow requests and your Roboflow backend. Now all this information is available in your catalog, and there are 3 more workflows to discuss. We will address them here in this movie. Because we were copying some files around, maybe some of the categories are now empty. If we have a look here inside this huge category tree, I have an example workflow that will look for all the categories based on a query, and this query can be a standard Cumulus query, or here I'm using an advanced Roboflow query. It has a special parameter called count records below is null, so I'm looking for any category who has no records attached. This workflow can also process records of a category, but because we are looking for a specific category here, specific category with no records, I set this parameter to no all records of the category to no records. What I do in here is I store the category path, I write that to the log just to have the information that that category was deleted, and then I delete the category. So if I run this workflow, you will notice in the catalog that it checks any of the categories and deletes them if necessary, so if they are empty. To see what this workflow has done, I go to show log, and I can see that it deleted one category under the $categories, the T folder. Remember, we renamed in the previous training movie the file called tongue, which was in a category called T, and we moved that to another category because the word of that file started then with a B. We moved it to a folder called B. So it removed this empty category for you. So this is a very simple, straightforward workflow. You have the ability, as I said before, to have standard Cumulus queries here or special queries. You can find the syntax for these special Roboflow queries inside the help of the scripting language. So just go to the scripting language help and you will find it at the bottom described what query syntax you can use. On top of that, you can process records. You can have either all records or query based, finding a part of the records of that category, and they can be processed in this script. You can do something special with them, and after this script is executed, which is before the records, then this script is executed for the records, and then that script is executed after the records are processed. So these are the 3 steps that can be personalized in this type of workflow. As I said before, we have now registrations or information in our catalog here of different actions that were taken on different records. We did 3 actions on this, and we did 1 action on this. So we can now use a new type workflow, another type of workflow that I've configured here, which is a watchsql workflow. Watchsql is a workflow that launches a query. It launches a an SQL query, and it does that towards a JDBC driver. And so any SQL database that has a JDBC driver, you can use here. Out of the box, this type of database is pre-configured, so I can use it. If you want to use your specific SQL database, then you have to install the driver, put the jar in the lib folder, and change the startup scripts that they contain also this lib folder. If it runs as a service, you also have to change the wrapper.conf to point to that jar. And then all you have to do is specify the connection string here and specify the driver, the class name of the driver, and the SQL statement. This workflow can process queries, SQL queries, and then it can optionally open a Cumulus database, perform a query with the information that you got from that database and from the SQL table, row per row, and it can process maybe lookup records and push information to catalog. How do I get to the fields, or what actions can I take? Well, very simple. Here in this example, I want to export to a tab limited text file the actions that were taken. So I store a path where I want to store this, which is here in this folder, SQL export, and I say I want to create if it doesn't exist, just to be sure. Then if this is the first loop, the first item of this loop, then I'm creating a new file called with the day of time of today.txt in that particular folder, and I do a little trick here. Normally these variables that you store are only available in this particular for this particular item, but an output variable can be stored globally, which makes them available for every item in the workflow, and then I can reuse it to store or write the other elements. In SQL, result row is offered to the workflow as a hash table, or a table as we call it, and you can store this table, its elements, as stored text. If we have a look at the database, you can always do a test here, and I'm going to copy this, and what I can do is I can do a test. Unfortunately, it doesn't bring along your settings, so you have to make sure that you can copy paste them from somewhere else, or you know them from the top of your head. And then I can show you the catalog. So this is what is stored in the catalog. You see the different field names, and you see the different records that we are going to outputting. And so what I do here is, in the script itself, I store the result, one row that I get from the workflow, which is called hot. As you know, every object that is offered by a type of workflow is always called hot. And then I'm storing this in a text. I'm saying every field is now a variable, so the action date, be careful, the SQL table stores it in lowercase, so it's action data, record ID, record name, etc. All the fields, I just store them in one long text with tab characters in between, and a character return at the end. I call that row from SQL, and now I'm writing this to the file. I'm saying append it to the file, and then I log the same thing inside the Cumulus log. So if I run this workflow, it will create here for me a new export file. If I selected the right workflow, of course. Yes, I did. And there it is. There's my new file, and here are my exports. As you can see, all tab delimited. So I could use it for a report or for Excel, an Excel report, or do something else with it. So this was a nice example of how to export information from Cumulus using SQL. You can read and write in SQL. So you might wonder where is this SQL coming from? Well, I added to this workflow here in the action a simple instruction at the end. I opened an SQL database. I did an insert of an SQL statement in the action table, and that way for every action that it performs, it will have that information. In the start workflow, I added a cleanup call. So here it opens the database and then it deletes all the records. So whenever you run this first cleanup workflow, it will empty your SQL table, which is the purpose of this first workflow anyway, to clean up anything you might have done and start from scratch for the whole test suite in Cumulus 9 here. The last workflow is just a demonstration of the FTP upload workflow, which looks here to the file, the folder where those exports are, and will synchronize this to the FTP site. Here you have to set your FTP settings, the root folder where it has to synchronize with, and then it will upload this to the FTP site. So this was a quick overview and the last part of the test suite. Thank you for joining me, and if you have any questions, you can always contact me. Thank you. Have a nice day.